Hi again, General Math students. In this video we're going to continue our study of the simple interest formula, but we're going to learn to rearrange or transpose the formula. There might be situations where we're asked how long an investment needs to go for, what rate it needs to go for, needs to be at, rate of interest that is, or perhaps we might need to know what the original amount or the principal that needs to be invested. So in each of those cases we need to make these letters here that are on the right, we need to get them on their own or make them the subject. Now you might feel like you can have a go at that and try and make each of those the subject, and then have a look at what I do and see if you get the same as me. So if you feel like having a go at these before I do, please go ahead and try that, and then I'll have a go at them. Righto, so to make P the subject, this first one, we see that R and T are multiplying on this side, so of course they'll go on the other side and do the opposite operation, which is divide. Right, so we end up with P equals I on R times T. Now, all three of these are multiplying, so to rearrange, essentially to get any particular one of these variables or letters on their own, we just take the other two over the other side and divide. So R will be equal to I divided by P times T, and T will be equal to I over P times R. Now remember, the only version of this that we get is this blue one up here that I'm just revealing again. On the information sheet you get that, but if you're asked to find any of these other values, you're going to need to rearrange the equation and understand how to do that. So let's look at some examples. For how long in years and months must $1,250 be borrowed at 7% flat? Flat, of course, just means simple interest, before interest exceeds $400. Okay, so let's write down what we know. The amount of interest is $400. The original amount, the principal, is $1,250. And our rate of interest, when we take that 7% and divide it by 100, is 0.07. So we want to find how long. We're looking at time. So we're going to use that version of the formula there, that one that I've just highlighted. So T equals I over P times R. So in this case, that's 400 divided by 1250 times 0.07. So that gives us $4.57 years. Okay, I'm going to write that down, but the question asks for in years and months. So the way I like to do this is, well, I know that it's 4 years, right? So we've got that bit, it's 4 years, and 0.57 of a year, well, how many months is that? It's a bit over half of the year, so a bit more than 6 months. What I'll do is I'll get rid of that 4 by just subtracting the number of years. So I've just got everything after the decimal point. You could just retype it by remembering the number, but I just did that. And to turn that from years to months, we're going to multiply that by 12. So pretty much like to the nearest month, 7 months. We'll say to the nearest months, 4 years, 7 months. So that's how I like to convert years into months when there's a decimal involved. Right, you might want to pause the video and try the next one, then I'll have a go at it. Okay, this one's really similar. You've just got to be careful with that amount of interest though. So let's have a look at it. Right, so 6,000 grows to 8,000. How much interest is that? Well, it's the difference between those two. 8,000 take 6,000, $2,000. That's our amount of interest. Principal, 8,000 beg your pardon, 6,000, the original amount. That's how much is invested. Our rate of interest, 8% as a decimal, 0.08. We're going to use the same version of the formula because they're asking us about time again. Only this time they don't care about years and months, they just want to know months. So that's slightly different at the very end. Let's see what we need to do. Okay, so we get that is 4.1666 years. So this time we don't need to give it in years and months. They just want to know in months. So we can take that number and convert it to months by just taking the whole thing and multiplying by 12, which gives us 50 months. Excellent. Let's quickly do the last two. These are asking about the rate, the flat rate of interest. So this time we're going to use R equals I over PT. So let's write down what we know. The amount of interest, the principal, and the time. Okay, $5,000, that is our principal. Over 18 months, that's our time. Now remember, that needs to be converted into years. So how do we convert months to years? Well, we do the opposite of what we did before, from years to months, where we multiply by 12. Now we're going to divide by 12. 1.5 years. The amount of interest, okay, so 6,200, 5,000 becomes 6,200, so the difference between those is the amount of interest, $1,200. Okay, so our rate is equal to that amount of interest over the principal times the time in years, and that gives us $0.16. Now remember, that is the rate as a decimal, but we need to give this as a percentage. That's how interest rates are advertised. So how do we convert that decimal to a percentage? We multiply it by 100. So if we multiply this by 100, it's 16% per annum. Okay, the next one's really similar. Maybe you want to pause and try it on your own, then I'll have a go at it. Okay, so a payday loan. These usually mean big interest. So if you've ended up with a really big number for the interest, it's probably right. You've got to be really careful of these payday loans because this type of interest rate is not unusual and you can end up paying a huge amount of interest back. Anyway, $820 paid back on a $650 loan. So the difference between those is the amount of interest. So this person has paid $170 of interest. The amount that was borrowed was the $650, and the time is 2 months out of 12, 2 over 12. Which is 1/6. That's going to be some sort of recurring decimal. I might put this in as a fraction this time, but if you did it as a decimal, you'll get something really similar to me. Let's see what happens. So the rate is equal to the interest over 650 times 2 on 12. Let's get that happening. 170 divide 650 times 2 over 12. Okay, and that gives us 1.569, so forth. Okay, now that looks like it might be as a percentage, but that is as a decimal. We need to multiply that by 100 still. This is going to be a big interest rate. If we take this and times that by 100, we actually find that it's 156.9% per annum. So that is huge. That's a huge interest rate, and that's what those payday loans typically are like. They are exorbitant interest rates, or there are exorbitant interest rates involved. So be very careful with those sorts of things. Okay, so go ahead and have a look at the description for the video and try some of those questions.